In April 2021, I made a video called Twitter Sucks. This was a year and a half before Elon Musk bought the site and turned it into X, the everything app. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to continue calling X Twitter because it makes discussing it easier as one single website. In the old video, I went into detail about the then history of Twitter as a microblogging website. It was mostly a response to the exodus of Tumblr users that occurred after Tumblr banned pornography and graphic content in 2018. An event that saw a large move from the former to the latter. The qualms I had with the website at the time were mostly functional ones, basically explaining the ways a microblogging platform that should have died as a fad before the year 2010 fell short of expectations. It's an old video and not my finest work, but I said something that I've come back to over the years. Reactionary politics thrives in an environment where there is very little nuance. Saying this about a website with a character limit and suppressed replies is basically obvious, but that issue has become much worse in recent years, culminating in Twitter's basic unusability in the last 18 months. In the last month, I've basically stopped posting on Twitter, partially due to intentionally trying to break from the site as well as the harassment that I've been getting. So consider this video a letter to myself, some personal catharsis in the hopes that other people understand what I'm trying to say. Part 1. Elon. I'm not going to belabor this point. We all know Elon fucked up the website. I really do have to hand it to Elon. He is very good at fucking up things that he buys in ways that ultimately don't undermine him. What I mean by this is that Twitter has been gutted in terms of moderation, features, and usability, but Elon has still managed to preserve the bare bones of the site enough so that normal users' experience is unaffected. It's truly a masterstroke in my opinion. It's very easy to see why firing moderation staff is bad. It's very easy to see why destroying the verification system is bad. It's easy to see why changing the block feature is bad. But the truth is, the average Twitter user doesn't use these features frequently, meaning that the average Twitter user's experience on the website is completely unaffected. You can still post about whatever fandom you're part of without moderation, verification, or blocking. There's also an element of entertainment that comes with these bungles. The attitude on Twitter when everyone was clowning on Elon was not, we should leave this sinking ship. It was more like, I can't wait to see what happens next. It turns out being on Twitter is less like being on a sinking ship and more like watching a building fall down. If it's not going well, it actually makes you want to be there more to see what happens. The reason so many people left Tumblr was because when they banned pornography, realistically speaking, they removed entire swaths of their user base. Before 2018, there were probably thousands of users who were there for porn. On Twitter, there is no equivalent user base that is affected. Even people who lost their verified status are still able to post. There are a great deal of people like myself who have migrated to other websites like Blue Sky, but even then, it's possible to maintain a Blue Sky and a Twitter account, and often people post on both. On top of that, the verification system and monetization system creates an incentive for people to remain on the website or even redouble their efforts. It's a stupid incentive, but it's there. What Elon has proven then is that a website doesn't actually need moderation, a block feature, or a verification system. Twitter works just fine without them. I'm not saying they shouldn't have those things. In fact, I would say that they absolutely should, and the site was better before he fucked everything up, but you don't strictly need them. Users don't even badly want them. Put in a simpler way, Twitter is easy to use, easy to access, and addictive to scroll through. Do you really think people are going to stop using it just because the guy who owns it removes some features that most users don't even encounter? Twitter is also the #1 place to hate Elon Musk. Almost every one of his tweets is absolutely flooded with people, sometimes paid accounts, yelling at him. Twitter sucks. But no one cares, because Twitter is still fun and useful to use, and Elon knows precisely what he can and can't fuck up to achieve that balance. Combine that with the artists who gain invaluable networking commissions and attention on Twitter, and you have a site that is going to see use no matter what happens on it. Part 2. Functionality. This section is more of a personal section and intends to detail why Twitter has been useless for me, even as someone who has attained moderate success on the site. When I made my Twitter account, my goal was to network with other people who made Homestuck content and to funnel people back to my YouTube page. I also did this with Reddit and to a lesser extent Tumblr, and now I use Blue Sky. Those two goals, networking and funneling people into my projects, are completely unattainable on Twitter. Firstly, there are numerous reasons unique to Twitter that have existed even before Elon Musk's takeover that impede people that are trying to build a following on other sites. First is link suppression. In posts that have links, not just links off-site, but links to Twitter, such as quote retweets and hashtags, are suppressed in the algorithm. In other words, they appear to fewer people. I don't have any hard and fast numbers to back it up, but in my experience, off-site links are suppressed by a factor of 10. In other words, if 1,000 people were going to see it, 100 people will see it. This means that if you have a YouTube page or an itch.io store to promote, forget it. On my itch.io page, I can see where people are coming to my projects from. The number one site is YouTube, followed by Google, followed by Tumblr. Twitter is always low on the list in spite of the fact that I have the largest following on Twitter by far. The second issue is algorithmic decay. This is a fancy word for the fact that old posts do not get seen anymore. This is also in effect on Tumblr and YouTube, but to a much, much lesser degree. On Twitter, a post will get attention for usually less than a week before its engagement absolutely ceases. Not declines, ceases. If you're an artist, you know exactly what I mean. Even if a post or piece does incredible numbers, it only takes about a week until this piece is completely gone. No one likes it, no one reposts it, and no one replies to it. This is a massive issue that I'll get into more later, but it's an issue for people who want to host their content on site. It's compounded by the fact that since there is no tagging system, it becomes incredibly difficult to find posts with the search function once they're algorithmically dead. The third issue is a little more broad and vague, what I'm going to call the pancakes problem. There's an old tweet attributed to Bravo Cooley that goes, "Twitter the only place where well-articulated sentences still get misinterpreted. You can say, 'I like pancakes,' and someone will say, 'So you hate waffles?' No, bitch, that's a whole new sentence. What the fuck is you talking about?" Man, I should not read tweets aloud. On a site with a strict character limit that suppresses replies, this problem is not difficult to see. It is actually insane how absurd miscommunication can get on Twitter. People can essentially just tell lies about other people, and they will be replicated faster than you can possibly imagine. In this kind of environment, how can any communication even be possible? Tumblr, another website known for controversy, at least had controversial figures who were well understood, like the famous human pet guy, who had an ample chance to double down and explain his own insanity. On Twitter, this opportunity doesn't exist. Instead of laughing at someone doing something stupid, you can just say anything you want, and people who don't care to double check will just repeat it. Once a group decides to put you in their crosshairs, it's essentially impossible to stop them. Any attempt at clarifying yourself or explaining the situation or just saying it's not true will result in a further deluge of people yelling at you, responding to your every post with more and more impossibly unhinged replies until you can't block them fast enough. This kind of behavior is also self-reinforcing. It's hard to tell a mob of haters that they're wrong because the attention of the mob will quickly turn upon you instead. Furthermore, the mob is incredibly easy to fall into because of how militant people tend to be on Twitter. How many posts have you seen where someone says, some of my mutuals are following this bad person? The implication is that everyone is being closely watched for deviant behavior, that everyone should carefully and meticulously guard their following list, and that following someone who is the subject of that week's harassment campaign is marked in such a way that even appearing near them tangentially is enough to have that harassment campaign turned against you. The fan community that results from this kind of mob behavior is one that is intensely toxic to be part of. One where you're one minor fuck-up away from being harassed by morally righteous teenagers. Part 3. The slop problem. The main reason I stopped using Twitter wasn't because of its user base or lack of functionality or even the harassment campaign I was made to deal with. It was because it was making my art worse. My primary art form is writing. I make music and visual art too, but I consider writing to be what I'm best at and what is easiest for me to turn into long-form projects. On Twitter, writing is difficult to turn into content, mostly due to the word count limit. I had tried before with short-form fiction and little short horror stories, but none of those really took off. The writing that really got going on Twitter, though, was Homestuck pester logs. People loved these things. I would post a short dialogue between the characters, made easier to read and more visual by the character color coding, and then I would post those logs to Twitter as a screen cap. I would ask people what their favorite ship was to make a little scene of that ship. It was very fun. The logs were easy to make too. I could make them so quickly and easily that clacking one out only took 10 minutes, even less if I didn't bother proofreading, which I often didn't. I viewed them as basically disposable pieces of writing. I probably made hundreds of them. Since they were low effort and didn't matter if some of them underperformed, it was just a bit of fun. When you do this kind of quantity over quality work, you generally get a few bangers among other moderately successful posts. But on Twitter, quantity matters much more than quality due to the algorithmic decay that I talked about before. I didn't think much of this until I started noticing something. People began reacting to some of the pestrologs in a way that I didn't quite understand. People would quote retweet my posts complaining that I was out of character, or that the pestrologs were annoying to see, or that I was a bad writer. Which is, to be fair, pretty true. For a while, I didn't entirely understand the critique. To me, these logs were something I could clack out in about 5 minutes on average, not something that was intended to be anything but low-effort slop that tickled the pattern recognition in people's brains. People seemed to broadly like them, so I made them. On top of that, my real writing projects, like Homestuck Alternate Universe or analysis videos, were what I put so much effort into, and they weren't being discussed at all. So why were people reacting so strongly to these logs? I was just playing the game, making disposable art for a website that loves disposable art. That's when I realized that was the problem. I was playing the game. I was making slop. And because the slop outnumbered the good stuff, I was no longer the troll biology guy or the vriscumentary guy. I was the pesterlog guy, the slop guy. I had been changed by Twitter's system. One of the things that confused me most about people who criticized me for making slop was that those people made slop themselves. Suggestive posts, self-ship art, dumps of their sketches, things meant to be easy to make and targeted people's existing interests in easy-to-digest ways. They didn't like slop, but they made slop. It was the same with me. I didn't like slop, but here I was, making it. It's astonishing how quickly this can happen, too. This isn't the fault of any artist on the platform. It's the fault of the platform. No one wakes up and says, I want to make some slop. They end up getting tricked into it by the incentive structures of the website. On Tumblr, a site where a post can keep getting notes for years, you're incentivized to make better art for longevity's sake. On YouTube, a site that has a robust archive for channel content, you're incentivized to make better art for posterity's sake. On Twitter, where every post vanishes in just a few days and you're competing with other artists with massive outputs, you're incentivized to make art as quickly as possible that appeals to the lowest common denominator. You're incentivized to make slop. Part 4. Action items. The tough part about advocating that you quit Twitter is the sheer number of people who still use it. I can in good faith say that Twitter won't get you networking opportunities or attention to your art. There are still fairly small accounts there that are still pulling thousands of likes for art pieces. At the same time, I don't think Twitter is a very good networking app because those 1,000-strong art pieces get obliterated by the algorithm. On top of all that, all the networking I've done on Twitter eventually becomes networking I do in Discord servers or Trello boards instead of Twitter itself. Twitter sucks ass, but there are still advantages of being there, advantages that all hinge on there being millions of users. The solution I've come to is remove myself from it slowly, like an addict weaning myself off. I've been posting more slowly, mostly reposting things, occasionally doing scheduled posts and mirrored posts to other social media. Tumblr and Blue Sky are working very well for me. I was shocked at how quickly I was able to bounce back from zero on the latter, and how quickly people began to engage with me, like normal. Whatever you do, though, delete Twitter from your phone. I think that is the true brain killer, having Twitter at your fingertips at all times, especially if it's feeding your notifications. Talk to your friends on Discord instead of firing off a tweet. There's nothing that happens on Twitter that warrants taking your attention off your other projects, your friends, or your work. My advice is just leave. This might be hypocritical to say, but you have to do something. You have to do something if your favorite social media website is run by a Nazi pedophile. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, this is a very personal one for me. And, this is kind of the beginning of a new era. My entire career on the internet has basically been YouTube and Twitter. and Twitter has been a huge place where I've found connections with a lot of people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So I do feel sad in saying that Twitter is basically bunk, but it's not gonna become not bunk. So you just got to leave. I don't know what to tell you. I feel pretty stupid that I came to this conclusion basically 5 years into Twitter, but I don't know. I was the king of fucking Homestuck Twitter for a while. I had 8,500 followers, and it was still doing nothing for me. All it got me were people basically bitching at me. It gives people access to you in a way where they feel entitled to your time and energy. And all it's going to do is just make you fucking crazy. You're either going to be chasing success or you're going to achieve success, and it's going to underwhelm you in a way that you didn't even know was possible. On YouTube, that's completely different. I mean, I still get nice comments on my videos from years ago where they're just friendly and kind, and they say something about a topic that I, still want to talk about. And because it's more sophisticated and more like in depth, the things that people talk about matter more. I don't know. I just, after not being on Twitter as much for a long time, it just breaks my heart to see how fucking horrible it was for me. Again, I'm pretty stupid for not realizing this. I'm sure that outsiders can readily see that Twitter fucking sucks. But that's how it is. So, from the former king of Homestuck Twitter, goodbye. I'll see you around. I got some Undertale videos coming up, so look out for those.